Project Ready TV. We're super excited to have you join in with us for another segment. It's April, of course, and we are celebrating or have celebrated a lot of things, several things. One being my birthday, one being my anniversary. So shout out to my husband of 7 years. We're also celebrating some other things. Nationally, it's National Hope Month. It's also National Fair Housing Month. And it's also National Financial Literacy Month. And then you can also just browse the web to find out what are some other things that we are celebrating nationally. Well, I will not prolong us. We are talking about National Fair Housing today, and we have a special guest with us, and I'm super excited to meet for the first time and to also learn more about him and learn more about National Fair Housing. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Mr. Martin Watson. So welcome to Project Ready TV, Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that. How are you doing today?
I am awesome. I could not be better. It's beautiful outside, and I hope that you are well. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I work for Greenville County Human Relations. I am the Community Relations Coordinator, which means I spend a lot of time dealing with other communities, trying to make sure they understand some of the rights of their, as far as fair housing. I'm also the Fair Housing Coordinator, where I actually deal with a lot of different issues that come across where they feel like they've been violated of their fair housing rights. Mm. So, but again, I've been here for about 4 years, and I find it very rewarding, the work that I do here.
Well, that's awesome. I know we've interviewed a few people from with Greenville County, and it's always a pleasure to interview you all. You come with so much wealth and information and resources for our community. So again, I'm happy to have you today, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We spoke a little bit before we came on air, and you were saying how busy you are. So I just really, really, really appreciate these 15 minutes or so that you've taken out your time, your busy schedule, to talk about some important things like fair housing and what that means to our community. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, talking about fair housing and allowing Mr. Watson to give us some background and some resources and some information. So let's just hop right on in. Can you tell us a little bit about fair housing laws and what those means, how they kind of came about, how they help us in the process of, housing?
Yeah, okay. Well, you stated that this is Fair Housing Month, which is a big celebration because the Fair Housing Act was actually signed in the month of April, on April the 11th. Now, it started a while back. I'm sure everybody remember Martin Luther King. Okay. The Fair Housing Act today actually started from the Civil Rights Act back of 1964, where the act was put in place for discrimination when it comes to labor, and also it stopped segregation at that time. Well, back then it was basically just to have fair housing between the race, color, sex, national origin, as well as making sure that those people are not discriminated when it came to getting a job, getting funds, things like that. But it did not have what they call the housing part. Now, it allowed you to buy, someone of color to buy land and not be discriminated against. But it wasn't a situation where you had fair housing, okay? And that was actually put into place on April the 11th. As you know, in 1964, Martin Luther King was assassinated. In 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated on April the 4th. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to get this done the whole time, but it wasn't happening. So after he was assassinated on April the 11th, 7 days later, Lyndon B. Johnson signed into act the Fair Housing Act. Okay?
Wow.
And this act protected individuals. It was actually an addendum, so it protected 7 classes, and that was race, color, religion, sex, familiar status, national origin, and disability.
Wow.
All those weren't in place before, but now it basically protected those from being discriminated from purchasing a home, being discriminated from getting a loan. So this act is very important today, because if you look around Greenville, you would see all the buildings that are being built. Can you imagine if that act wasn't in place today?
Right.
So that's kind of the little small background of where we at, how we got to the Fair Housing Act, which was actually signed by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968.
Well, thank you for that history lesson. That was, I don't think I've ever heard it quite put that way before. So thank you for that information. How do you feel it, and you may or may not, how do you feel that fair housing may affect middle or high school students?
Well, it affects them in a major way, because, as you know, you have the right to live where you want. You recently saw, and I was just looking at the TV this week, where this kid was actually being harassed for being in the neighborhood. But that's part of fair housing. You cannot be discriminated for living in a neighborhood. Right. But that's actually what happens still today. So as the middle school or high school students, it is a major impact on them where they live, or, being able to, or their parents live where they want to live. Because if this wasn't in place, they would be basically segregated to a separate area, or unable to get a loan to where they could live where they want to. It's very important that we actually appreciate that law, should I say, to the point where we shouldn't take any of this for granted. Right. Because the way things are changing now, you can still see discrimination in every way, even in homes, even in where a person lives. So it's very important how they respond to being appreciative to having this law, and what to do in the case they are discriminated.
Right. So I just want to ask you about a couple of terms that I've heard, myself and over the years, but some of our target audience, which tend to be middle school, high school students, and of course, some of their parents. But I did want to mention some of these terms, and you just kind of briefly give us a overview of them. The first term that I would like for you to explain is redlining. What does that mean, and how can it affect, or how does it come in play with fair housing?
Redlining was a practice that was used back in the 30s, where, and on up, should I say, not just stopped at the 30s. Right. But it was a process where banks and other organizations, financial institutions, would look at impoverished areas, or areas that was mostly inhabited by Black or Latino or people of color, and they would look at that as being subprime property or low-income property that they would not necessarily want to make an investment in. So what they did, literally, a socially impoverished property, they would literally take a red line on a map and mark off those areas. Now, seeing that area, if you were basically going to a bank to get a loan, okay, they would look at that and see where you're looking to buy. Wow. If you're buying in this part they call the red line area, then they would not give you a loan. Or they charge you extremely high interest. They considered it protecting their investment, but it was illegal. Right. And so that's basically how the term redlining came. And that also came with government grants or government funds. All this was practiced back then to where if you lived in that area under the red line, then you was unable to get loans or government funds or different things like that you should be equally able to get no matter what. This basically happened into your larger cities, Chicago, New York, different places like that, to the point where if lived in the urban area, those places were the ones that you would not get funds for because you lived in what they call the red line.
Got it. Another term for you, block busting. What does that mean, and how did it affect housing?
Block busting was really kind of interesting. This was a tactic that was used by a lot of realtors to basically purchase land at a lower price. So they would go into this nice neighborhood, normally white. Okay. They would actually have individuals, a black young lady, maybe with a baby, and have them walking in the neighborhood, and they would target a certain house or whatever, and basically say, hey, you better sell now because they moving in. And when they look out, they see this black family walking down the street, then that just proves to them that they are moving in. And they would say, you better sell because your property value is going down if they move in. So that's what they call block busting. And what they would do, they would buy the land at a very low rate because the seller wants to get out of that community because they think that, hey, our property value is going to go down because, blacks or Latinos are moving in or whatever. Then what they would do, they would buy the land at a low rate and then sell it at a higher rate. So that's the term how block busting came, and they would just do it from block to block.
Wow. What advice would you give to our parents, or you don't even have to be a parent, individual, when it comes to housing? Like, what do you like to tell the people that come visit you to kind of help them understand exactly what you guys are there at the county to help clients through?
Well, I would basically suggest that first thing, purchasing a house is one of the largest investments you have, you will make. I would definitely suggest that person understands their rights as an individual when it comes to fair housing, and that's what we're here for. I would also suggest if they feel that they're being discriminated, don't just let it go by, report it. And that's what we do. We take reports. In fact, I had one today, which is pretty funny. We'll talk about that later. But I would suggest that, hey, before you even purchase a home, understand what the responsibilities of a home is. We have what they call the first-time home buyers education class, where we actually it talks about every aspect of owning a home, even down to fair housing, the scams that goes on with housing, how to avoid certain things, but be prepared mentally when you're buying a home. That's a major part. And don't be too aggressive. When I say aggressive, don't be too anxious to take the first thing that comes along.
It definitely is a process, and you have to have thick skin. I know when I went through the process, I switched realtors like 3 times, and just different things just happened. Student loans came out the pocket,
Yeah, everything comes out when you buy a home.
It does. And what I like to tell my students is that, we don't necessarily think about these things. Like, whoever would have thought that maybe student loans could possibly hinder you from being a homeowner. But I think we just kind of jump into it sometimes. But I would suggest, if I wouldn't have known, I would have made you guys' office my first stop, just so that I can have the information for myself, because it is taxing. It is a lot of information. And it's like, oh my goodness, I felt like I was signing my life away when I purchased, my home. And it was my first home, my husband for the second one. But oh my goodness, I think you are such a great resource for anybody just to start it. I mean, not even looking for something negative to happen, but just for a resource. If I could encourage anybody, you definitely need all the resources you can get when you're thinking about such a major purchase like this. The last question that I have for you as we conclude today, share how you and your position helps those who may feel like they were steered when trying to rent or own their home. Like, how do you do that?
That's a good question, because I was thinking about, I had a case today, and it was so good that you saw this, and I said, this would be great. They had a gentleman that purchased a home, purchased a lot to build a home. The gentleman is Latino. So when he purchased the home, everything was going good. Then all of a sudden, the builder says, no, you can't have that lot. Now, granted, he's already purchased a lot. But now he said, the builder, you can't have that lot. Let me show you one over here that may be better for you. By that move, saying, let me show you this that may be better for you, that's steering.
Wow.
Okay. What happened was the lot, what we understand, is probably went up in price. So they don't want to have him buy it at that price. So we move him over to another area.
To raise it.
And then they sell that at a higher area. That's exactly what happened. That's steering. Okay. It is illegal. And I'm working on a case right now with that. I took it today, and we will be actually running into HUD so that we can actually, I feel like anytime that you're doing something illegal, you need to be punished, and a lot of times citizens of color are the main ones that are being affected. Okay. So that's basically steering. Is any time, again, I said Fair Housing Act basically says you have the right to live wherever you want to without being discriminated. Now, steering not only comes when it comes to builders, it comes to finances. Okay. So therefore, if you're being charged a higher rate than anyone else at the same price, that's against the law. But steering, or you out there with your realtor, and your realtor said, okay, let's go look at these. And I hear this a lot. And you said, well, I really don't like these. I want it, but they still continue to take you in neighborhoods that you don't like. That's steering. Okay.
One more question. I know we said one more question. So do you typically work with mostly realtors or the individual, or is it a little combination of both? Like
I am a HUD agent, I should say, to the point where I have to stay right in the middle.
Gotcha.
I work with anybody who's been discriminated against, or a lot of times when it's landlords, I work with landlords who say, I need to make sure that I'm not discriminating. What should I do? So I work right there in the middle. Like, I don't go from one side to the other, but I do make sure that a person that is being discriminated against, case is heard.
Gotcha.
But I have to stay right in the middle.
That's good. So that, whether you're renting or a homeowner, that you feel like you have an advocate for that person. So that's so awesome. Mr. Watson, you have given us so many great tips today and so much great information, and I appreciate you again. Tell us how, before we sign off today, tell us how someone could come to your office, where you're located, what's your phone number. Okay. Give us all of that good information.
Okay, we're Greenville County Human Relations, and we're in Suite 16. That's 301 University Ridge, Greenville, South Carolina, right down here in County Square. Also, I want to put in a plug for, if you want to give us a call, you can give it. I tell you, I'll give you my direct number when it comes to discrimination. 864-467-7616. Okay. Also want to make sure that everybody understands, although we do fair housing and the when it comes to discrimination. We also make sure you're ready for a home. So what we have is the FEC here, Financial Empowerment Center. And this is at no charge to you. And especially to those individuals who are in high school now and want to start working to make sure that they are prepared to buy a home later, making sure they understand the importance of credit, savings, debt reductions, and budgeting. We'll be glad to help them with that. We have, like I said, FEC. We do that at no charge. So all you have to do is contact us. We can set you up with a counselor. And one more plug.
No,
we have a major event coming up April. When you said there was fair housing month, we have a major statewide event coming up on April the 22nd. Okay, you can go to our website, www.greenvillecounty.org/human relations, and go to upcoming events, and you can see where you can actually register for that. It's $35, but it's statewide, and we have some awesome speakers that's going to be speaking, along with a roundtable that you can ask questions later. And you would also receive a gift valued at $50 in the mail once you register.
Goodness, you came with a lot of great resources today, and I appreciate it. And I hope that this is not the beginning and the end of our relationship. So we hopefully we can get you in. You can maybe speak to some of our students directly at one of our smaller events, workshops, and we'll be or even our parents, and we'll be happy to have you back again. And thank you again for taking the time out to speak with us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Before we let you go, we want to remind you to like this, share this, tag someone, comment below. If you comment, we will definitely get your answer and we'll reply back to you. So again, we appreciate you. We hope that you tune in for the remaining segments of this month. And next week, we'll be talking about Financial Literacy Month with one of our board members, and we're super excited for that segment. So tune in, and then don't forget, tonight is our all month we've been doing Project Ready College Tours. So we had 3 scheduled this month, and I know it's not in person, it's virtual, but you still need the information. Also, 2 more things. We have our MLK scholarships packet out. So if you're in the 12th grade, please feel free to sign up and register for that. And also look for our senior sign-in day event to come. And there's just so much exciting things happening at the Urban League. We just cannot stand it. So again, I have enjoyed my time with you. And as always, we appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you then. Goodbye.